It was November 4th, 2025. A very important election night was happening in Virginia. People all over the state waited eagerly for the results. Virginia has a long history, about 400 years. On this night, a new chapter in that history was about to begin. For the very first time, a woman was going to become the state's governor. This was a big and historic moment for everyone in Virginia. The main candidate in this special election was Abigail Spanberger. She is a Democrat. She is 46 years old. Before she entered politics, she worked in a secret job for the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA. Later, she served in the U.S. Congress, helping people in her district. Her victory was very important. It meant that Virginia's top leader would change from a Republican to a Democrat. This election was also unique because both of the main candidates were women. This had never happened before in Virginia's race for governor. Many people watched to see what this historic night would bring for the state's future. 2. A new leader. Abigail Spanberger is a woman with a remarkable history. She is 46 years old. Before she ever thought about politics, she had a very important and secret career. For more than 8 years, Abigail worked as an operations officer for the Central Intelligence Agency, known as the CIA. This means she was a secret agent, working undercover for her country. Her work for the CIA was about keeping the United States safe. She gathered important information, called intelligence, on dangerous threats. These threats included topics like nuclear weapons, which are very powerful, and terrorism, which involves violent acts against people. She traveled to different places to do this, working both inside the United States and in other countries around the world. It was a job that required a lot of bravery, quick thinking, and a strong sense of duty. After serving her country in this secret role, Abigail Spanberger decided to leave the CIA in 2014. She then spent some time working in private businesses. However, her desire to serve the public remained strong. She felt a calling to help people in a different way. In 2017, the then governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, recognized her commitment. He appointed her to the Virginia Fair Housing Board. This was her very first step into working in public service within the state. This experience, along with her years of secret service, led Abigail to decide to enter politics fully. In 2018, she took a big step and ran for the U.S. Congress. She aimed to represent Virginia's 7th District. This election was seen as a very challenging one for a Democrat because the district had not elected a Democrat in over a decade. Many people believed it would be too hard to win. But Abigail campaigned tirelessly. She connected with voters and explained her ideas. Her hard work paid off, and she won the election, bringing a significant change to the district. She then served in the U.S. Congress for 3 consecutive terms, from 2019 until early 2025. During her time as a representative, she became well known for her approach to politics. People saw her as a pragmatic moderate. This means she focused on practical solutions to problems rather than extreme political ideas. She was also respected for her ability to work with people from both the Democratic and Republican parties. She often sought common ground and believed in finding ways for different groups to cooperate. This reputation for working across party lines and focusing on real-world issues made her an effective leader in Congress. This valuable experience was key in preparing her for the next historic chapter in her life. 3. The Big Race. The election for governor in Virginia was a very important event. 2 main candidates hoped to win the job. One was Abigail Spanberger, who ran as a Democrat. The other was Winsome Earl Sears, representing the Republican Party. This election was truly special. For the first time in Virginia's long history, which spans over 400 years, both major candidates for governor were women. This meant that no matter who won, the state would make history. Winsome Earl Sears also had the chance to achieve another historic milestone. If she had won, she would have become the first black woman to ever be elected governor in the United States. So the race was important for gender representation and potentially for racial representation too. People watched closely to see what Virginia voters would decide. The political situation in Virginia at that time was very interesting. The state had shown strong support for Democrats in recent elections. For instance, Virginia had voted for the Democratic presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, in the 2024 election. Because of this, many political experts saw the governor's race as a big test. It was an important early look at how people felt about President Donald Trump's second administration and its policies. It was like a report card for the national government. Virginia was a key state for this national test for several reasons. Many people in Virginia worked for the federal government. Also, a large number of companies in the state had contracts with the federal government. This made Virginia especially sensitive to federal policies. Changes made by President Donald Trump's administration, such as budget cuts or new laws, could directly affect many Virginia families' jobs and their daily lives. So the election was not just about state issues. It was also a way for Virginians to express their views on the national political landscape and the impact of federal decisions. 4. The main issues. Virginia voters had one main worry in 2025: the economy. People were thinking about money a lot. A study in September showed that more than 20% of voters cared most about high prices and the cost of living. This meant daily expenses were a big issue for many families. They worried about how much food, gas, and rent cost. Voters wanted a leader who could help them with these practical problems. Abigail Spanberger knew this was important. Her campaign focused on helping people with their money. She created a plan called the Affordable Virginia Plan. This plan had simple goals: to make things less expensive for everyone in the state. It aimed to lower costs for important things like health care and prescription medicines. It also wanted to help with housing and energy bills, which were getting higher for many Virginians. Spanberger talked about these ideas everywhere she went, showing how her plan would bring real relief. Many people in Virginia work for the federal government or for companies that do business with the government. The state has hundreds of thousands of federal workers, more than almost any other state. This meant that decisions made by President Donald Trump's administration in Washington, D.C., had a very big effect on Virginia families. Trump's policies, like cuts to the federal workforce, led to job losses. Around 11,100 federal jobs were lost in Virginia by the time of the election. Many more jobs were also at risk of being cut soon. This caused great fear and uncertainty for numerous families about their future and how they would pay their bills. These job cuts caused big economic problems across the state. Virginia's unemployment rate began to rise for 7 months in a row, the longest such period since the Great Recession of 2008. This showed that the economy was struggling. Virginia even dropped from first place to fourth place in a national ranking for best states for business, with federal job cuts noted as a main reason. Spanberger clearly showed how these federal actions hurt Virginia's economy and its people. She talked about helping families with their daily bills and promised that her plan would help people keep more of their hard-earned money. Spanberger's focus on these common money problems and practical solutions helped her connect with voters all over Virginia. She promised to bring practical help to people's homes, not just talk about politics. 5. A difficult campaign. Winsome Earl Sears, the Republican candidate, faced many challenges in her campaign. She aimed to build on the work of the previous governor, Glenn Youngkin. Her main messages were about growing businesses and giving parents more control over education in schools. However, many political experts noticed that Earl Sears struggled to find her footing. Her campaign found it hard to create a clear message that truly connected with what voters cared about. As the election period continued, Earl Sears shifted her focus. She began to talk more about cultural and social issues. A key topic for her became transgender rights. Her campaign released several advertisements. These ads tried to show Abigail Spanberger as having extreme views on civil rights and health care for transgender people. For example, some ads claimed that Spanberger supported policies allowing men in girls' locker rooms and transgender students to compete in sports with girls. Earl Sears hoped these issues would excite her loyal conservative voters. However, this strategy around cultural issues did not prove effective in Virginia. A Republican strategist named Tucker Martin noted that transgender issues were just not top of mind for most Virginians at that time. What might be a strong message in other states like Florida or Wisconsin did not work as well in Virginia. Spanberger took a different approach. She stated that decisions about transgender students in sports should be made by local school districts, not by the state government. This helped her appear more moderate to voters. A significant hurdle for the Republican campaign was the low popularity of President Donald Trump in Virginia. The current president of the U.S., Donald Trump, had not won Virginia in 3 past presidential elections. His policies, especially federal job cuts and changes to trade, had a negative impact on Virginia. The state has many federal workers and defense contractors. Thousands of federal jobs were lost or threatened, making life hard for many families. President Trump did not actively campaign for Winsome Earl Sears. He never held an event for her in Virginia, and his support was seen as weak. This lack of strong backing from the president was a major problem. Republican leaders in Virginia privately admitted it was very difficult to run for office as a Republican while President Trump was in his second term. Spanberger's campaign used this, often linking Earl Sears to President Trump in advertisements. This further complicated Earl Sears' efforts to gain votes. Ultimately, the Republican campaign struggled to connect with voters because their main messages did not match what Virginians cared about most. Voters were primarily worried about economic issues, such as inflation and the cost of daily life. The focus on cultural topics, combined with President Trump's unpopularity in the state and his limited support, made it a very difficult campaign for Winsome Earl Sears. 6. The voters decide. Before the main election day, many people in Virginia chose to vote early. A large number, almost 1.4 million Virginians, cast their ballots this way. This early voting showed that many people in the state cared deeply about who would be the next governor. These early voters had some clear characteristics. More women voted early than men, making up 55% of all early votes. This was a common trend in recent Virginia elections. Also, older citizens were very active. Almost half of all early voters were 65 years old or more. Adding to this, about 2/3 of all early ballots came from people aged 55 or older. On the other hand, younger people, those under 30, voted much less, making up less than 7% of early voters. The groups that voted early also reflected Virginia's different backgrounds, with many people of European ancestry, African Americans, Hispanic people, and Asian people casting votes. When looking at political preferences, about 56% of these early voters usually supported the Democratic Party. Around 38% typically supported the Republican Party. The remaining voters were independent or did not choose a party. Then came Election Day, the final day for voting. On this day, how people voted showed important differences across the state. In areas that usually vote for Democrats, many more people came out to vote. Places like Falls Church and Chesterfield County, known for supporting Democrats, had noticeably higher rates of people casting their votes. However, in areas that often vote for Republicans, fewer people went to the polls. Rural regions, such as Orange County and places in Southwest Virginia, saw lower numbers of voters. One person who studies politics said that people who usually vote Democratic were showing up strongly, while others were not. This difference in voter turnout across the state, with more people voting in areas that liked Abigail Spanberger, suggested a possible advantage for her. 7. A historic victory. On the night of November 4, 2025, the results for Virginia's governor race came in. People across the state watched closely. Soon it was clear that Abigail Spanberger, a Democrat, had won. She defeated the Republican candidate Winsome Earl Sears. Spanberger received about 1,231,228 votes, which was 55.3% of all votes. Earl Sears got around 993,327 votes. This victory was a big change, as it moved Virginia's governor's office from Republican to Democratic control. This was a truly historic moment for Virginia. For about 400 years, the state had never elected a woman as governor. Abigail Spanberger became the very first. Her win meant Virginia joined 32 other states that have had a female governor. The election itself was special because both main candidates were women, which was also a first for Virginia. After her win, Abigail Spanberger spoke to her many happy supporters in Richmond at her campaign office. She told the crowd that her victory was more than just a win for her. She said it sent a strong message to everyone in Virginia and to people across the country. "We sent a message to the whole world," she announced. She explained that in 2025, Virginia chose smart, practical thinking over arguments between political parties. She said Virginia chose its own well-being over disorder. The night was even more historic because Ghazala F. Hashmi, another Democrat, won the race for lieutenant governor. She became the first Muslim woman to win a statewide office in the United States. Spanberger, who is 46 years old, has a special background. Before entering politics, she worked for more than 8 years for the Central Intelligence Agency. There, she gathered information about important topics like nuclear weapons and terrorism. She then served 3 terms in the U.S. Congress from 2019 to early 2025. This election was watched closely by many people outside Virginia, too. It was one of only 2 governor elections happening in 2025. Because of this, it became an early test of how people felt about President Donald Trump's second time in office. Virginia was a key state for this test. Many people in Virginia work for the federal government or for companies that help the government. So, President Trump's policies had a big effect on their jobs and lives, especially with federal job cuts during his administration. Spanberger's victory in a state with such close ties to federal government work highlighted how these policies impacted local economies. Abigail Spanberger's campaign focused on what she called the Affordable Virginia Plan. This plan aimed to make things like health care, medicine, housing, and energy cheaper for families. She traveled all over Virginia, even to areas that usually vote Republican. Her message was about helping people with their daily costs. This was a different approach for Democrats who had tried other strategies in the past. Her ability to win by focusing on these core economic issues rather than making the race about national partisan conflicts showed a new path forward. If Spanberger's win by a good margin showed success, It could become a guide for how the Democratic Party runs campaigns in the 2026 elections. It showed that focusing on local economic problems could help moderate Democrats win, rather than focusing only on national political fights. Her win offered a potential blueprint for other politicians across the country looking to connect with voters on practical issues. 8. What happens next? The election of Abigail Spanberger as governor was a very important moment for Virginia. It was a historic event because she is the first woman to lead the state in about 400 years. She won with 55.3% of the votes, showing a clear change in leadership from the previous Republican government to a Democratic one. Her victory marked a new chapter for Virginia, making it one of only 33 states to have a female governor. Looking to the future, Governor Spanberger has promised to lead Virginia with a focus on practical solutions instead of political arguments. She spoke about choosing what is best for the state over any chaos. Her main plan, called the Affordable Virginia Plan, aims to help families with daily expenses. This includes lowering costs for health care, medicine, housing, and energy. These issues were very important to voters, especially because federal job cuts under President Donald Trump's administration had a big effect on many families and defense workers in Virginia. This election could also be a guide for other politicians across the country. Many people believe that Spanberger's focus on everyday economic problems, often called kitchen table issues, helped her win. After some challenges in 2024, Democrats are now looking at her campaign as a possible model for future elections, like the midterms in 2026. Her approach showed that voters respond well when politicians talk about things that directly affect their money and lives. As Virginia begins this new journey with its first female leader, there were other historic firsts too. Ghazala F. Hashmi also won the lieutenant governor's race, becoming the first Muslim woman to win a statewide office in the United States. This election was a powerful statement about change and progress. What do you think was the biggest reason for Abigail Spanberger's historic win?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.